Hello Leafs Nation, I'm Rick Scarborough and you're watching Blue and White Weekly, where we bring you weekly updates on the Leafs and the hockey world at large. I've spent this past week watching a Toronto team fill me with hope in the playoffs instead of despair, but for the moment that's not what's important. What's important is the NHL preseason has at long last come to a close, so let's get into the news. Right off the bat, breaking news coming in this morning as superstar captain Connor McDavid has signed an extension with the Edmonton Oilers. The contract carries an annual cap hit of $12.5 million, the same as his current contract, and goes for 2 years, keeping him an Oiler until at least the end of the 2027-28 season. This deal comes after weeks of back and forth between the team and player, where it looked like things were not trending in the right direction, or at least the direction the Oilers wanted. Speaking of the Oilers, they acquired goaltender Connor Ingram from the Utah Mammoth in exchange for future considerations. Ingram was on waivers last week, but after clearing waivers, he is now eligible to move back and forth between Edmonton's NHL and AHL roster for a time period without having to clear waivers again. Remember that, because it will affect the Leafs later. The two most exciting games of the preseason both happened this week and both featured the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning. Why were these games so fun to watch? Because they straight up tried to murder each other. Thursday night's 5-2 Tampa win saw 186 penalty minutes between the two teams, and Saturday's 7-0 Panthers victory saw 322 penalty minutes between them. At one point, Tampa only had 3 players on the bench, and now some 48 hours later, fines are still being handed out to various players. That Saturday game also saw something I don't think I've ever seen before in an NHL contest. Florida defenseman Nico Mikkola was assessed a game misconduct, but apparently either ignored the referee or didn't realize and returned to action to assist on Florida's 8th goal of the game. When officials realized this, he was ejected and the goal was removed from the scoreboard. We've seen guys not realize they were ejected before, but I don't think they've made it onto the score sheet after that. And now let's switch gears to our Maple Leafs, who, after a relatively quiet preseason, got up to some stuff as training camp drew to a close. To start, let's get into Thursday's matchup against the Red Wings. The final preseason game at home saw the Leafs ice a mostly NHL-ready lineup, including Easton Cowan, who head coach Craig Berube has said he's been very impressed with throughout camp, while the Red Wings sent out a lineup comprised of guys who are destined for the Grand Rapids Griffins. The party started just 2 minutes in as Austin Matthews scored on the power play to give the Leafs an early lead, but this was all Scotiabank Arena would get to cheer about on this night, as the Red Wings would score 3 straight in the third to take the game 3-1. At one point in the game, Lucas Raymond took a run at Leafs goaltender Anthony Stolarz, which Morgan Rielly took exception to. If this is an early sign of the attitude change that Berube has been hyping up for Rielly, I'm all here for it. An unfortunate takeaway from this game, however, was Scott Laughton walking away from it with a week-to-week injury. No worries, though. David Kampf can easily slot into his spot in the lineup until Laughton's healthy enough to return. Oh, that's right. David Kampf was put on waivers only hours after this announcement of Laughton's injury. All right, then, I guess. Now, Kampf did, in fact, clear waivers, which could drive up his trade value. See what I was talking about with Connor Ingram from earlier. And that will bring us to the final game of the preseason, and thank goodness it was preseason. The fringe guys came to shine in this one, with Nick Robertson, Alex Nylander, and Michael Pezzetta all getting on the scoreboard, among others, but it wasn't enough, and the Red Wings took this one 6-5 in overtime. And coming in just now as we wrap this episode up, the Leafs have claimed a pair of players off the waiver wire. Winger Sammy Blais from Montreal and goaltender Caden Primo from the Carolina Hurricanes. While we don't know for sure at the time of this recording, I'd wager a guess that this addition of Primo to the Leafs depth chart means James Reimer will not become a permanent fixture with the club and will depart as his professional tryout contract expires. And with that, the preseason comes to a close, and the Leafs will walk away with a 2-4 record through 6 games. But what do we always say about the preseason games we lose, folks? They don't matter. What does matter is the regular season kicks off this Wednesday night as the Maple Leafs renew their eternal rivalry with the Habs at the home opener before heading to Detroit on Saturday for the first hockey night in Canada of the year against the Red Wings. We'll have both those games for you next week, plus so much more. But for now, thank you very much for watching Leafs Nation. Be sure to like and subscribe. And remember, go Leafs, go. We'll see you next week.